It was getting dark on a Tuesday evening when Officer Johnson was driving his patrol car through the quiet neighborhood. He had been working the evening shift for almost 10 years now, and he thought he had seen everything. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to discover on Elm Street. The streetlights were just starting to flicker on when something caught his eye. At first, he thought it might be a lost dog or maybe some trash that had blown against the sidewalk. But as he slowed down and turned on his headlights, his heart almost stopped. There, sitting on the cold concrete, was a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. She was crying softly, and next to her lay a woman who wasn't moving. The officer quickly pulled over and grabbed his radio. His hands were shaking a little as he called for an ambulance. In all his years on the force, seeing a child in distress always hit him the hardest. As he walked toward them, the little girl looked up at him with the biggest, saddest eyes he had ever seen. Her cheeks were wet with tears, and she was holding the woman's hand tightly. The woman appeared to be her mother based on their similar features. "Hey there, sweetheart," Officer Johnson said gently, kneeling down beside them. "My name is Officer Johnson. Can you tell me what happened?" The little girl wiped her nose with her sleeve and tried to speak through her tears. "My mama just fell down," she said in a tiny voice. "She was walking, and then she just fell down and won't get up. I tried to wake her up, but she won't open her eyes." The officer's heart broke a little more as he looked at the scene. The woman was breathing, but it was very shallow and weak. She seemed to be unconscious, and her skin looked pale in the streetlight. He could see that she was probably in her late 20s or early 30s, and she was wearing a uniform from what looked like a local restaurant. "What's your mama's name, honey?" he asked the little girl while checking the woman's pulse. "Her name is Rosa," the child replied. "And I'm Lily. Are you going to help my mama? She has to wake up because she needs to read me a story tonight." Officer Johnson's throat tightened. This innocent child had no idea how serious the situation was. He gently placed his hand on the woman's wrist and felt a weak pulse. She was alive, but something was definitely wrong. As they waited for the ambulance, Officer Johnson noticed more details about their situation. The woman's hands were rough and calloused, showing she worked hard with her hands. Her uniform had a name tag that read Rosa and the logo of a diner called Sunnyside Cafe. There was a small grocery bag next to them that had fallen over, spilling out a few basic items like bread, milk, and some canned soup. "Were you and your mama coming home from the store?" he asked Lily. She nodded. "Mama picked me up from Mrs. Peterson's house. Mrs. Peterson watches me after school because Mama has to work. We were going to make soup for dinner." Her lips started to quiver again. "Is my mama sick?" Before Officer Johnson could answer, Rosa's eyes fluttered open for a moment. She looked confused and scared, trying to figure out where she was. When she saw the police officer, she tried to sit up but was too weak. "Ma'am, please don't try to move," Officer Johnson said softly. "An ambulance is on the way. You collapsed on the sidewalk, and your daughter has been taking care of you." Rosa's eyes found Lily, and she tried to smile. "Mija," she whispered, which Officer Johnson knew meant my daughter in Spanish. "Are you okay, baby?" "I'm okay, Mama, but you fell down and scared me," Lily said, squeezing her mother's hand even tighter. Rosa tried to speak again, but her voice was getting weaker. "I'm sorry, Mija. Mama is just very tired." Officer Johnson could see that Rosa was struggling. Her breathing was becoming more labored, and she seemed to be fighting to stay conscious. He had seen this before, and it worried him. This looked like more than just tiredness. In the distance, he could hear the ambulance sirens getting closer, but as he looked at this mother and daughter, he realized there was so much more to their story. Rosa's uniform was clean, but old, and it had been mended in several places. Lily's clothes were also clean, but clearly hand-me-downs that were a little too big for her small frame. The grocery bag told another story, too. The items inside were all basic necessities, nothing extra. No treats, no snacks, just the bare minimum to make a simple meal. Officer Johnson had grown up in a similar situation, so he recognized the signs of a family stretching every dollar. "How long has your mama been working at the restaurant?" he asked Lily, trying to keep her talking while they waited for help. A long time, she said. She works there during the day, and then sometimes she cleans offices at night after I go to bed. She's always working, but she says it's because she wants to take good care of me. This information made Officer Johnson's heart sink even further. Rosa was clearly working multiple jobs, probably barely making ends meet, and now she had collapsed from what looked like exhaustion or something worse. Rosa's eyes opened again, and this time she looked directly at Officer Johnson. "Please," she whispered so quietly that he had to lean in to hear her. "If something happens to me, don't let them take Lily far away. She's all I have, and I'm all she has." "Ma'am, you're going to be fine," Officer Johnson said, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. "The paramedics will be here any minute, and they'll take good care of you." But Rosa shook her head slightly. "I can feel it. Something's wrong. I've been feeling sick for weeks, but I couldn't afford to see a doctor. I kept thinking it would get better." Lily was listening to this conversation, and her eyes were getting bigger and more frightened. "Mama, you're going to be okay, right? You have to be okay because I need you." Rosa managed to lift her hand and touch her daughter's face. "You are the strongest, bravest little girl in the whole world, Mija. Never forget that." The ambulance finally arrived, and the paramedics quickly took over. Officer Johnson helped explain the situation while they worked on Rosa. Her blood pressure was dangerously low, and her heart rate was irregular. The paramedics worked quickly to stabilize her before moving her to the stretcher. As they prepared to take Rosa to the hospital, she grabbed Officer Johnson's arm. "Please stay with Lily," she said. "She doesn't have anyone else right now." "I will," he promised. "I'll make sure she's taken care of." Lily climbed into the ambulance with her mother, holding her hand the entire way to the hospital. Officer Johnson followed in his patrol car, his mind racing with thoughts about this family and what might happen next. At the hospital, the doctors immediately took Rosa into the emergency room while Lily and Officer Johnson waited in the hallway. The little girl sat in a chair that seemed too big for her, swinging her legs and asking every few minutes when she could see her mama again. Officer Johnson tried to get more information about their situation. He learned that Rosa was indeed working 2 jobs trying to support herself and Lily after her husband had died in an accident 2 years earlier. She had no family nearby, and their only regular babysitter was an elderly neighbor who couldn't help in an emergency like this. As the hours passed, Lily fell asleep in the waiting room chair. Officer Johnson covered her with his jacket and continued to wait for news about Rosa. He had called his supervisor to explain the situation, and everyone agreed that he should stay with the child until they could figure out what to do next. Around midnight, a doctor finally came out to talk to them. Officer Johnson gently woke Lily up, and they both listened as the doctor explained that Rosa's condition was very serious. She had suffered a heart attack, likely brought on by stress, exhaustion, and poor nutrition. Her body had been pushed to its limit, and now it was shutting down. "Can I see my mama now?" Lily asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. The doctor knelt down to her level. "Yes, sweetheart, you can see her, but I need you to know that your mama is very sick, and the machines are helping her breathe." Lily nodded seriously, as if she understood, more than a 6-year-old should have to understand. Officer Johnson took her hand, and together they walked into Rosa's hospital room, not knowing that this would be one of the most important moments of all their lives. Walking into Rosa's hospital room was like stepping into a different world. The beeping of machines filled the air, and there were tubes and wires everywhere. Lily's hand tightened around Officer Johnson's fingers as she saw her mother lying, so still in the big hospital bed. "Mama looks so small," Lily whispered, and Officer Johnson had to agree. Rosa, who had seemed like such a strong woman just hours before, now looked fragile and tired. Her face was pale, and a breathing mask covered her nose and mouth. "Can I talk to her?" Lily asked, looking up at the officer with hopeful eyes. "Of course you can, sweetheart," he said softly. "The doctor said she might be able to hear you even if she can't talk back right now." Lily walked slowly to the side of the bed and climbed onto a chair so she could be closer to her mother. She gently touched Rosa's hand, being careful not to disturb any of the medical equipment. "Hi, Mama," she said in her small voice. "It's me, Lily. The nice police officer is here with me, so you don't have to worry. I've been very brave, just like you always tell me to be." Officer Johnson felt his eyes getting watery as he watched this little girl trying so hard to be strong for her mother. He had to turn away for a moment to collect himself. A nurse came into the room to check on Rosa and noticed how well-behaved Lily was being. "You're taking very good care of your mama," she told Lily with a kind smile. "I can see she raised a very special little girl." "My mama is the best mama in the whole world," Lily said proudly. "She works really hard so we can have food and a place to live. Sometimes she's so tired that she falls asleep while reading me stories, but she always tries to finish them the next day." The nurse looked at Officer Johnson with understanding eyes. She had seen many families like this one, where parents worked themselves to exhaustion trying to provide for their children. After the nurse left, Officer Johnson sat down next to Lily's chair. He knew he needed to ask some difficult questions, but he wanted to be gentle about it. "Lily," he said carefully, "can you tell me about your family? Do you have any grandparents or aunts and uncles who might be able to help take care of you?" Lily thought for a moment, swinging her legs from the chair. "My abuela lives far away in Mexico, but Mama says she's very sick too. We used to talk to her on the phone sometimes, but not anymore because Mama says the phone calls cost too much money." Officer Johnson nodded. "What about your daddy's family?" Lily's face got sad. "My papa died when I was little. He was working on a big building, and he fell down. Mama cries sometimes when she looks at his picture, but she tries to hide it from me." This information made Officer Johnson realize just how alone Rosa and Lily really were. Rosa had been carrying the entire weight of raising her daughter by herself with no family support and very little money. "Tell me about Mrs. Peterson," he said. "She's the lady who watches you after school, right?" "Yes." Lily's face brightened a little. "Mrs. Peterson is really nice, but she's very old. She has trouble walking sometimes, and she can't pick me up when I fall down. But she makes good cookies, and she lets me help her feed the birds in her backyard." Officer Johnson made a mental note to contact Mrs. Peterson in the morning. She might have more information about Rosa and Lily's situation. As the night went on, Lily told him more about their daily life. She explained how her mother would wake up very early to get ready for her first job at the diner, then pick Lily up from school and take her to Mrs. Peterson's house before going to her second job cleaning offices. "Mama always looks so tired," Lily said, still holding her mother's hand. "But she always smiles when she sees me. She says I'm her sunshine and that I make everything better." "Your mama loves you very much," Officer Johnson said. "I can see that. I love her too," Lily replied. "More than anything in the whole world. When I grow up, I want to get a good job so Mama doesn't have to work so hard anymore." The innocence of this statement broke Officer Johnson's heart. This little girl was already thinking about taking care of her mother, when she should have been worrying about nothing more than homework and playtime. Around 3 in the morning, a doctor came to check on Rosa. Officer Johnson stepped outside with him to talk privately while Lily stayed by her mother's bedside. "How is she doing, doctor?" Officer Johnson asked, though he could tell from the man's expression that the news wasn't good. Dr. Williams sighed deeply. "I'm not going to lie to you, officer. Mrs. Garcia is in very serious condition. Her heart attack was severe, and her body shows signs of prolonged stress and malnutrition. It's clear she's been pushing herself far beyond what her body could handle." "What are her chances?" Officer Johnson asked quietly. "It's hard to say. We're doing everything we can, but the next few hours will be critical. Her heart is very weak, and there may be permanent damage." Officer Johnson felt sick to his stomach. "What about the little girl? She doesn't have any other family nearby." "Child services will need to be contacted," the doctor said. "But I understand you've been staying with her tonight. That's very kind of you." When Officer Johnson went back into the room, he found Lily had fallen asleep in the chair, her head resting on the hospital bed next to her mother's arm. She looked so peaceful, unaware of how serious everything really was. He gently covered her with a blanket that the nurse had brought and settled into another chair to keep watch over both of them. As he sat there in the quiet room, listening to the sound of the machines keeping Rosa alive, He thought about his own family. Officer Johnson had a daughter about Lily's age at home. He couldn't imagine what it would be like to be in Rosa's situation, trying to raise a child alone while working multiple jobs just to survive. It made him appreciate everything he had and realize how quickly life could change. As the sun started to come up, Lily woke up and immediately looked at her mother. "Is Mama better now?" she asked hopefully. "The doctors are working very hard to help her," Officer Johnson said, not wanting to give false hope but also not wanting to scare the child. A social worker arrived that morning to assess the situation. Her name was Ms. Thompson, and she was a kind woman who had been working with children and families for many years. She spoke gently with Lily, asking her questions about her home life and her relationship with her mother. "Lily is a remarkable little girl," Ms. Thompson told Officer Johnson privately. "It's clear that despite their financial struggles, Rosa has done an excellent job raising her. Lily is polite, articulate, and shows no signs of neglect or abuse. This is simply a case of a hard-working mother who couldn't afford proper health care." Officer Johnson felt relieved to hear this. He had been worried that the system might blame Rosa for her situation. Later that morning, Mrs. Peterson arrived at the hospital. She was a small elderly woman who walked with a cane, but her eyes were bright and alert. Lily ran to hug her carefully, being mindful of the old woman's frail frame. "Oh, my dear child," Mrs. Peterson said, patting Lily's hair. "I've been so worried about you and your mama." Mrs. Peterson confirmed what Officer Johnson had already learned about Rosa's situation. She explained that Rosa was one of the hardest working people she had ever known, always putting Lily's needs before her own. That girl would give her last dollar to make sure Lily had what she needed. Mrs. Peterson said, tears in her eyes. She never complained, never asked for help. Even when I could see she was struggling, she was too proud to admit how hard things were. "Did you know she was sick?" Officer Johnson asked. Mrs. Peterson nodded sadly. "I could see she was getting thinner and more tired, but when I asked about it, she would just say she was fine. She didn't want anyone to worry about her." As the day went on, more pieces of Rosa and Lily's story came together. The manager from the diner where Rosa worked came to visit, bringing flowers and expressing shock at what happened. She explained that Rosa was one of their most reliable employees, never missing a shift even when she was clearly not feeling well. "She always said she couldn't afford to take time off," the manager explained. "We offered to help her find resources for health care, but she was too proud to accept help. She said she could handle everything on her own." The cleaning company supervisor also came by, sharing similar stories about Rosa's work ethic and dedication. Everyone who knew her described the same thing: a woman who worked incredibly hard but never complained about her circumstances. As afternoon turned to evening, Rosa's condition remained stable but critical. The doctor said they were cautiously optimistic but warned that she wasn't out of danger yet. Lily had spent the entire day by her mother's side, talking to her, reading her a story from a book that Mrs. Peterson had brought, and just being present. Officer Johnson had stayed at the hospital much longer than his shift required, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. Something about this family had touched him deeply, and he felt responsible for making sure they were okay. As night fell again, he realized that this was just the beginning of what would be a long and difficult journey for everyone involved. The third day at the hospital started like the previous two, with Lily sitting beside her mother's bed, chatting quietly about everything and nothing. She told Rosa about the nice breakfast the hospital cafeteria lady had given her, about the funny cartoon she watched in the waiting room, and about how Officer Johnson had taught her to play a simple card game. But something was different that morning. Rosa's breathing seemed more labored, and the nurses were coming in more frequently to check her monitors. Officer Johnson noticed the concerned looks on their faces, though they tried to hide their worry when Lily was watching. Dr. Williams pulled Officer Johnson aside around noon. His expression was grave, and Officer Johnson felt his stomach drop before the doctor even spoke. "I'm afraid Mrs. Garcia's condition has taken a turn for the worse," Dr. Williams said quietly. "Her heart is failing, and her body is shutting down. We've done everything we can, but the damage was too extensive. I don't think she has much time left." Officer Johnson felt like someone had punched him in the chest. Over the past 3 days, he had grown attached to both Rosa and Lily. He had been hoping and praying that Rosa would recover, that this little family would get their happy ending. How long? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hours, maybe less, the doctor replied sadly. I think we need to prepare the little girl. Does she understand how serious this is? Officer Johnson shook his head. She knows her mama is very sick, but she's been so hopeful. She keeps talking about all the things they're going to do together when Rosa gets better. Would you like me to talk to her? Or would you prefer to do it? Dr. Williams asked gently. I think it should come from me, Officer Johnson said. She trusts me. This was going to be the hardest conversation of his life. How do you tell a 6-year-old child that her mother, her whole world, is about to leave her forever? When he went back into the room, Lily was showing Rosa a drawing she had made with crayons that Mrs. Peterson had brought. It was a picture of the two of them holding hands in front of a house with a big sun shining overhead. Look, Mama, Lily was saying. I drew us at our house, and I made the sun extra big, because you always say I'm your sunshine. Officer Johnson sat down beside her chair, trying to find the right words. Lily, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something very important. She looked at him with those big, trusting eyes. Is it about Mama? Is she going to wake up soon? Lily, he began, his voice shaking slightly. Your mama is very, very sick. The doctors have been trying their best to help her, but sometimes even when doctors work really hard, they can't make someone better. Lily's smile faded. What do you mean? I mean that your mama's body is too tired to keep fighting. She's been working so hard for so long, taking care of you and trying to make sure you had everything you needed, that her body just can't do it anymore. But she has to get better, Lily said, her voice getting smaller. I need her. She's my mama. Officer Johnson felt tears starting to form in his eyes. I know, sweetheart. And your mama loves you more than anything in the whole world. That's why she worked so hard, because she wanted to take care of you. Is my mama going to die? Lily asked in a whisper, as if saying it quietly might make it not true. Officer Johnson nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Yes, honey, I think she is. But I want you to know that it's not your fault, and it's not because she doesn't love you. Sometimes sad things happen that nobody can control. Lily was quiet for a long time, looking at her mother's peaceful face. Then she said something that surprised Officer Johnson. I think I already knew, she said softly. Mama feels different now. She's not really here anymore, is she? The wisdom of this little girl amazed him. Despite her young age, she had somehow sensed what the adults around her were trying to protect her from. Can I talk to her? Lily asked. Even if she can't talk back? Of course you can, Officer Johnson said. The doctors think she can still hear you. Lily climbed up onto the bed very carefully and lay down next to her mother. She put her small hand on Rosa's chest and spoke in a clear, brave voice. Mama, it's me, Lily. Officer Johnson told me that you're very sick and that you might have to go away soon. I want you to know that I understand. I know you've been working so hard to take care of me, and I know you're tired. Officer Johnson had to step back and wipe his eyes. This child was showing more strength and maturity than many adults he had known. I want you to know that I'm going to be okay, Lily continued. Officer Johnson is going to help me, and Mrs. Peterson loves me too. I'm going to be brave like you taught me to be. At that moment, Rosa's eyes fluttered open. She looked confused at first, then her gaze found Lily's face. A small smile crossed her lips, and she tried to speak. Mija, she whispered so quietly that they had to lean in to hear her. I'm here, Mama, Lily said, taking her mother's hand. Rosa turned her head slightly to look at Officer Johnson. Thank you, she mouthed silently. Mrs. Garcia, Officer Johnson said, moving closer to the bed. Is there anything you want me to tell Lily? Anything you want her to know? Rosa struggled to speak, her voice weak but determined. Lily, she whispered, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You made every hard day worth it. I love you too, Mama, Lily said, tears running. down her cheeks, but her voice still strong. "Promise me," Rosa continued with great effort. "Promise me you'll remember that you can do anything you set your mind to. You're smart and kind and brave." "I promise, Mama." Rosa looked at Officer Johnson. Again. "Please," she whispered. "Help her remember where she comes from. Help her remember our story." "I will," Officer Johnson promised. "I'll make sure she knows about you, about how hard you worked and how much you loved her." Rosa smiled weakly and turned back to Lily. "You are my sunshine, Misha. Even when I'm not here anymore, I want you to keep shining bright. Can you do that for me?" "Yes, Mama. I'll keep shining," Lily said, though her voice was starting to shake, and, "Remember," Rosa said, using what seemed to be her last bit of strength, "whenever you see the sun, think of me smiling at you. I'll always be watching over you." Lily lay her head on her mother's shoulder. "Will you tell me one more story, Mama? Like you used to?" Rosa's breathing was getting more shallow, but she managed to speak. "Once upon a time," she whispered, "there was a little girl who was braver than any princess and kinder than any fairy. She had a heart full of love and a smile that could light up the darkest day." "What happened to the little girl?" Lily asked softly. "She grew up to do amazing things," Rosa said, her voice getting fainter. "She helped people and made the world a better place, and everyone who met her knew she was special." "Is that story about me, Mama?" "Yes, Mija, that story is about you." Rosa closed her eyes, still smiling slightly. Her breathing became slower and more peaceful. Lily stayed curled up next to her, holding her hand and whispering, "I love you, Mama." Over and over. Officer Johnson stood at the foot of the bed, tears streaming down his face as he watched this heartbreaking goodbye. He had seen many difficult things in his years as a police officer, but nothing had ever affected him like this. Dr. Williams came in quietly and checked Rosa's vital signs. He looked at Officer Johnson and shook his head sadly. Rosa had passed, away peacefully, surrounded by love. Lily seemed to understand without being told. She kissed her mother's forehead and whispered, "Thank you for being the best mama in the world. I promise I'll be brave." Then she looked at Officer Johnson with tears in her eyes, but her chin held high. "She's not hurting anymore, is she?" "No, sweetheart," Officer Johnson said, kneeling down beside the bed. "She's not hurting anymore. She's at peace." "Good," Lily said simply. "Mama worked so hard. She deserves to rest now." The strength of this little girl was incredible. Even in her grief, she was thinking about her mother's well-being. Officer Johnson knew that Rosa had raised someone truly special. As they said their final goodbye to Rosa, Officer Johnson made a silent promise. He would honor Rosa's last request. He would help Lily remember her mother's love, her sacrifice, and her strength. And he would make sure that Lily's light continued to shine, just like Rosa had asked. Mrs. Peterson arrived shortly after, and together, they helped Lily through the first hours of her new reality. The little girl cried, of course, but she also showed a resilience that amazed everyone around her. Mama always said that when sad things happen, we have to look for the helpers, Lily said, as they prepared to leave the hospital. "Officer Johnson, you're one of the helpers, aren't you?" "Yes, Lily," he said, taking her small hand in his. "I'm here to help and I'm not going anywhere." As they walked out of the hospital together, Officer Johnson knew that his life had been changed forever by meeting Rosa and Lily. This experience had reminded him why he became a police officer in the first place, and it had shown him that sometimes the most important part of his job wasn't catching criminals or writing tickets, but simply being there when people needed help the most. The weeks following Rosa's passing were some of the hardest in Officer Johnson's career, but also the most meaningful. He couldn't stop thinking about the promise he had made to Rosa and the responsibility he now felt toward Lily. The little girl had shown such incredible strength during her mother's final moments, but Officer Johnson knew the real challenge was just beginning. The funeral was held at a small church in their neighborhood, and Officer Johnson was amazed by how many people came to pay their respects. Co-workers from both of Rosa's jobs attended, along with neighbors, teachers from Lily's school, and people from the community who had heard about the story. Many of them had never met Rosa personally, but they had been touched by her dedication to her daughter. Lily sat in the front row wearing a simple black dress that Mrs. Peterson had bought for her. She was quiet and composed, occasionally wiping away tears but maintaining the brave face that her mother had taught her to show the world. Officer Johnson sat beside her, offering quiet comfort and support. During the service, several people shared memories of Rosa. Her manager from the diner talked about how Rosa always volunteered to work extra shifts when other employees called in sick, never complaining even when she was clearly exhausted. A co-worker from the cleaning company shared how Rosa would sometimes bring homemade sandwiches to share with anyone who looked hungry, even though she barely had enough for herself and Lily. Rosa never talked much about her personal struggles, the coworker said, but she always asked about our families, always wanted to know if we were doing okay. She had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. Mrs. Peterson spoke about watching Rosa walk to work every morning before dawn, then seeing her return home late at night, always with a small toy or treat for Lily despite having so little money. That woman loved her daughter more than life itself, she said through tears. Everything she did was for Lily. When it was time for Lily to speak, she walked up to the front of the church with a piece of paper in her hand. Her voice was small but clear as she read what she had written. "My mama was the best mama in the whole world," she began. "She worked very hard so we could have food and a house. Sometimes she was very tired, but she always read me stories and tucked me into bed every night. She told me I was her sunshine and she was mine too." Lily paused, looking out at all the faces in the church. "Mama taught me to be brave and to be kind to everyone. She said that even when sad things happen, there are always helpers around us. I see all of you here today, and I know you're all helpers. Thank you for loving my mama and for loving me too." There wasn't a dry eye in the church as this 6-year-old girl showed more grace and wisdom than many adults possess. Officer Johnson felt his chest tighten with emotion and pride for this remarkable child. After the service, something unexpected happened. People started approaching Officer Johnson and Mrs. Peterson, asking how they could help Lily. The manager from the diner handed him an envelope with money that the staff had collected. "Rosa was family to us," she said. "We want to make sure Lily knows she's not alone." The cleaning company supervisor did the same thing, explaining that word had spread among all the office buildings Rosa had worked in, and people wanted to contribute to Lily's future. Even some of the office workers who had never met Rosa but had seen her working late into the night had donated money. Over the next few days, Officer Johnson's phone rang constantly. A local newspaper had picked up the story, and then a television station wanted to do a feature about Rosa and Lily. Within a week, the story had spread across social media, touching hearts all over the country. People from states away were sending cards and small donations, all wanting to help the little girl who had shown such courage in the face of tragedy. But what impressed Officer Johnson most was how the local community had rallied around Lily. The principal at Lily's school called to say that several families had volunteered to help with carpools and after-school care. The local library offered free tutoring services. A pediatrician offered to provide Lily's health care at no cost. Even the grocery store where Rosa used to shop with their limited budget set up an account so Lily would never have to worry about having enough food. "It's like the whole town has adopted her," Mrs. Peterson said one afternoon as she and Officer Johnson sat in her living room watching Lily play in the backyard. Rosa would be so amazed to see how many people care about her little girl. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from Rosa's former co-workers at both jobs. They organized a fundraiser that raised enough money to set up an education fund for Lily. The goal was to make sure she could go to college someday, something Rosa had always dreamed of, but never thought would be possible. Rosa used to talk about wanting Lily to have opportunities she never had. One of her co-workers explained. "She said education was the key to a better life. This is our way of making sure her dream comes true." As the weeks turned into months, Officer Johnson found himself becoming more and more involved in Lily's life. The social worker, Ms. Thompson, had arranged for Lily to stay with a foster family, but Officer Johnson visited her regularly, always keeping his promise to Rosa. The foster family, Mr. and Mrs. Davis, were a retired couple who had raised 3 children of their own. They welcomed Lily with open arms and made sure she felt loved and secure. But they also understood the importance of helping her maintain her connection to her mother's memory and her cultural heritage. Officer Johnson helped Lily create a memory book about Rosa, filled with photos, stories from friends and co-workers, and drawings that Lily made of her favorite memories with her mother. They included the picture of Rosa in her diner uniform, the small cross necklace she always wore, and copies of the bedtime stories Rosa used to tell. "I want to remember everything about Mama," Lily told him one day as they worked on the book, together. "I want to remember her voice and her smile and the way she hummed while she cooked dinner." "We'll make sure you remember all of it," Officer Johnson promised. "Your Mama's story is part of your story, and it's important." One of the most touching developments was when Lily started talking about what she wanted to be when she grew up. Before her mother's death, she had talked about becoming a teacher or maybe a veterinarian, but now she had a different dream. "I want to be a nurse," she announced one day. "I want to help people who are sick and scared, like the nurses helped my mama." Officer Johnson wasn't surprised by this decision. Lily had always been a caring child, but her experience at the hospital had shown her how important it was to help others during their most difficult moments. As Lily's 7th birthday approached, Officer Johnson wanted to do something special to honor Rosa's memory. He reached out to all the people who had been touched by their story, and together they organized a birthday party that Rosa would have been proud of. The celebration was held at the community center, and it seemed like half the town showed up. There were balloons and cake, games and presents, but the most special moment came when Lily stood up to thank everyone. "My mama always said that birthdays are for celebrating how much you've grown and learned," she said, her voice strong and clear. "This year I learned that even when something very sad happens, there are always people who care about you. I learned that my mama's love didn't go away when she died. It just got bigger and spread to all of you." She paused, looking around at all the faces smiling back at her. "Mama used to tell me that I was her sunshine, and that I should always keep shining bright. I think I understand now what she meant. When we share our light with other people, it makes everyone brighter." Officer Johnson felt tears streaming down his face as he listened to this wise little girl. Rosa had indeed raised someone extraordinary, someone who would carry her mother's love and strength forward into the world. Later, that evening, as the party was winding down, Lily walked up to Officer Johnson with a small wrapped present. "This is for you," she said shyly. "It's not much, but I wanted to give you something." Inside the wrapping paper was a drawing Lily had made. It showed Officer Johnson in his police uniform, standing next to Lily and Rosa, all 3 of them, smiling under a bright yellow sun. At the bottom, in careful letters, she had written, "Thank you for being one of the helpers." "Lily," Officer Johnson said, kneeling down to her level, "this is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me." "Do you really mean that?" she asked. "I absolutely mean it," he said. "You and your mama have taught me so much about what it means to be brave and kind and strong. I'm honored to be part of your story." As the months continued to pass, Lily thrived in her new life while never forgetting where she came from. She excelled in school, made new friends, and continued to show the same kindness and wisdom that had amazed everyone from the beginning. Officer Johnson kept his promise to Rosa in every way he could. He made sure Lily knew about her mother's strength, her sacrifice, and her unconditional love. He helped her stay connected to her cultural heritage and supported her dreams for the future. And true to her mother's prediction, Lily continued to shine brightly, touching the lives of everyone she met with her warmth, her resilience, and her generous heart. Rosa's legacy lived on through her daughter, proving that love truly is the most powerful force in the world. The story of Officer Johnson finding Lily crying beside her injured mother had become a story of hope, community, and the incredible impact that one person's kindness can have on another's life. It reminded everyone who heard it that we all have the power to be helpers, to be the light in someone else's darkness, and to make sure that no child has to face life's challenges alone.